What's going on, guys? My name is Nick, or Olsen Auto, and in today's video, it's going to be more of a vlog style video, but we're going to be primarily working on the CBR. It has been a long time since I've made a CBR video, so I'm pretty excited. Right now I'm going to head out to O'Reilly's. I got to grab some fuel line, because this stuff is junk. It's super cracked and just not that pliable. Disgusting fuel line. So I'm going to grab some new stuff, just because the tank's off. I have easy access to it. But I also gotta grab some brake clean rags. Before I get into this video, guys, I want to ask that if you enjoy my content or you want to see more of it, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to stay updated on every upload I make. Also, if you like this video, be sure to drop a like on it. Comment down below what video you want to see next, or if you have any questions. Without further ado, let's cold start the Accord. Alright, guys, just got to the infamous O'Reilly Auto Parts. Gonna go ahead, gonna grab some air filter cleaner, fuel line, brake clean, and I think that's all I need from here. And then I gotta grab some rags from Harbor Freight. That was hella camber. In case you couldn't tell, it's raining, and they have the exit locked because apparently coronavirus can't spread through the other entrance and exit. It can only spread through that entrance and exit, so they blocked it. So I have to walk across the entire parking lot, which, in my fairness, I was going to park in the back anywhere far away from other people, but why the entrance was locked rather, I don't know. But I got the goods. I bought every single can of green brake clean they had. They had 10 cans, I bought it all. I'm soaked. I don't want to be here anymore. Let's go home. Alright, guys, so here is the washable and reusable K&N air filter off of my 94 CBR600 F2. And right here is the K&N filter cleaner. Now, basically, I'm going to spray it on both sides. And then what you do is you have to rinse it through the back side. So you push the debris out rather than pushing it in through this way. And then, you know, getting it lodged on the side of the filter that you're actually taking air in from. So basically it literally just says spray it down, let it sit for 10 to 20 minutes. Don't let it dry. If you let it dry, it's bad. Rinse it out through this side until it's all gone, and then apply the oil, which we're not going to do in my kitchen sink because I feel like that would get me yelled at. So I don't know how much of this to use. I don't know how to use it. I'm just spraying and hoping for the best. This smells like fish, kind of. Okay, it's more than kind of. It smells like fish. Alright, so it's been 13 minutes. Online it says 20 minutes, but I want to rinse it out now and see what results we get. I can already see dirt all over the sink. Oops. But, let's go ahead and rinse it out. So that's what was in my air filter. That's what my engine was breathing. That's terrible. While the filter dries in the sink, making some lunch. We got the mott sticks going. Stoked. So while I ate, I let this sit and drip, and it's already decently dry, but obviously it's still wet. So what I'm going to do, and you can see through it now, you couldn't really see through before. You can now, which is awesome. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to grab a hairdryer. You're not supposed to use compressed air. It can mess up the filter really bad. I'm going to go ahead, get the hairdryer, apply some light heat, and hope that we can get this thing dry, because you can't oil it when it's wet. Alright, so we are back in the garage, and right here I have the K&N air filter oil. Essentially, this puts oil on your filter so that any dirt and debris that gets into the filter gets stuck to the filter rather than just going right through it. So this stuff is essential. We're going to go ahead, we're going to grab our filter. I'm going to do it over the trash, but I'm also going to test spray this, because I don't know how this sprays. Okay, good to know. Let's go ahead and apply this to our filter. Now, a good thing to note is you do have to oil both sides, so we're going to start with the back. Alright guys, got the filter loosely sitting back on. Of course, it's kind of how it sits. There's nothing really holding it down besides the air box. But now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quick check the inside of the factory air box, make sure it's all clean. That's freshly oiled. Going to go ahead and put the air box back on, bolt it down, and then throw the new fuel line on that we just picked up. So right now we're just working on all of the low-hanging fruit, essentially, of this build. Getting everything done that needs to be done just so it can start and so I can test ride it. Right now, letting that dry, and then I'm going to respray it if there's any areas that look like it needs respraying. But the exhaust is also a big piece. So I purchased the, I want to say it's a 9-inch Delkevic silencer, and then I have the full Delkevic stainless steel exhaust. Headers all the way back. Probably the most expensive part for any vehicle I've ever bought. Literally. So working on that, tightening down the clamps, making sure everything fits well. But we are having a problem where right here, I believe it's supposed to mount that little thing to the secondary stand that this bike should have had from the factory, but someone, like I did on my bobber, someone took it off. So we're working on making sure that's secure and that the exhaust is all set. And then we got to put the fuel line on. But for now, we're going to look for the piece because there's a special sleeve that's needed right there on the secondary kickstand. As you can see, it has a bunch of space, so we got to get a spacer or something of the sort. So it's time to look around the garage and see if we can find that. So, like I said, a lot of what we're doing today is just low-hanging fruit stuff, all the little things we have to do. And one of my genius ideas, because I'm literally the best mechanic in the world, was to grab an old exhaust hanger. Now, right there, if you guys can see it, that bolt, that's what's holding up the exhaust. And it's actually, the exhaust has like a little area where you put a bolt through it, and then it goes in between. Send the bolt through, and it pinches the exhaust where the double kickstand goes, or where the secondary kickstand goes. And basically, so what I did was grabbed an old exhaust hanger, we trimmed it up so that it would fit through the exhaust, put it in, and then put a through bolt right through it, since obviously the hanger already has an area, a little hole. Shoved a bolt through there, and then basically trimmed it out like that, made a little bushing, so now the exhaust is all tight. Working on the gauge cluster, I did buy a new one right there in the box. I was just making sure I knew how to plug this in and bolt it down. And the reason I bought a new one, you can see like all the imperfections, like someone painted the bike and decided to paint everything, including the gauge cluster. There's a bunch of overspray, like you can hear that, so it's terrible. And then this is also broken off, so I just bought a whole new gauge cluster. The mileage on the gauge clusters are similar. This new one has about 800 more miles than the bike actually has, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to unplug it, take out the speedo cable. I just wanted to dry fit it, make sure I knew what I was doing. But now that I know how to get this in, throw the new one in, make sure all the lights work, plug the battery back in. Alright, so the exhaust is all done minus the actual studs going into the head. But this is the nice new gauge cluster, as you can see. Barely any damage, got a little nick right there. She's clean. It's a total pain to get these in and out. And there's also packing peanuts like wedged in here. Something like this. Boom. Okay, so now I just got, there are two plugs that actually control all your lights, and one's the tack, I believe. And then there's the speed cable, and that's it. So let's go ahead and do those, and then we'll bolt her down. Alright, so I apologize for the fan noise in the background. I just put the battery in. First time putting the key in the ignition. Let's see if we have any lights. Woo! Let's go. It's the first time this bike has had any lights on the gauge cluster since March. And they all seem to work. Minus the fact there's no blinkers, it's obviously going to blink faster. That is awesome. So, as it sits right now, the exhaust, that nice stainless with the fresh welds and the real carbon, a full Delkevic system, is tight. Up until the studs, which I replaced most of the studs in the engine. I have the ratchet in my pocket for some reason. We're going to go ahead and tighten those now. This bike was laid down minutely at some point. As you can tell, those two little antenna looking things are bent. And what that means is that bolts up, and you can see how that doesn't bolt up. So I'm debating if I want to bend this or just make a bracket. Two options, kind of debating that, but while I think about it, I'm gonna go ahead and tighten the exhaust. Alright guys, so besides the fact that I put this on so that it stopped leaking when I put it upside down, I'm just gonna put this over there. So I took the petcock off, drained all the fuel into an old tank. My dad's actually running to get me some premium right now because he's got to grab some other stuff. What I'm going to work on is figuring out where the petcock has the... Wow, that's some really slippery oil on the floor. Anyway, the way this works, it's sort of like a fuel pump. So with sport bikes, they don't expect you to be turning off your petcock all the time. So the reason, in case you guys are wondering, the reason that you turn your petcock off on motorcycles is the way... So you kind of have to know how carburetors work to understand it. But basically, when you let fuel sit in the bowl, you can bend the float. And then obviously if you bend the float, either it'll end up bending down because there's more weight of fuel. It'll actually idle differently, and obviously it'll adjust your air-fuel ratio, and it'll put more fuel into the engine, then it won't start. If you let fuel sit in a carburetor, not only is it going to gum up over time, but it bends the float, and that's why I have a petcock. So you can turn that fuel delivery off, and there's no pressure sitting on the float. This bike, however, only delivers gas to the carburetor when there's a vacuum on the engine, because it has a vacuum-driven fuel pump. The vacuum-driven fuel pump basically means you don't have to turn it off. So what I need to do is I need to figure out where the fuel line goes and where the vacuum line goes, and where all these other lines go, because I don't remember how I took this apart. That was months and months and months ago, and got a few extra lines here, so I'm going to just start working on it, figuring out what goes where. We were able to get the gauge cluster all tightened down, if I know where the key is. Again guys, this is such a big moment, is seeing lights on the dash. It's so nice for me. We're about to start it up. I did tighten, I guess I should finish what I'm saying. So yeah, it's nice being able to see lights on the dash. That's awesome. What we had to do was bend this. We actually got a huge pipe wrench, put a rag around it, although it still dug through and scratched it, which is kind of annoying. But we bent it like this, sort of twisting it forward, and what that did was allowed it to line up with that. So new gauge cluster, looking beautiful sitting on there. Another thing we did was the exhaust is all bolted up. Even these ones, I tightened all of these studs. I went to tighten this very first one. I started on this side, and it just kept spinning and spinning and spinning, and I was terrified. I thought for sure that I would have to helicoil the block, or helicoil the head rather, but I ended up being lucky. The reason I didn't have to run a helicoil in it, I was using a bad nut. Apparently the nut was just stripped out, so it kept spinning. So I ran a new nut, well, same style, but different one. And then as you can see, the other one's up there. That one's a different style than that one, because that one's original and that one has a new stud. There's only one original stud in this whole engine, and it's that one. So anyway, you guys don't care. I got that tight, as you can see, probably the sturdiest exhaust I've ever had. Then it runs all the way back. You got the springs all the way to the nice carbon fiber slip-on. Again guys, super sturdy exhaust. So now that that's done, once we get fuel into the bike, I don't even think the battery lost its charge over those months, because it still has plenty of power. So hopefully it'll start. Just got to work on fuel delivery. Alright, so I have this zip tied on. It should hold it. This is going to go into the petcock. This is our new fuel line, because the old one is all rusty and crusty and rotted. I believe these two are overflow. We're not going to put anything, we're not going to touch them, just going to put the tank on. If it idles high or doesn't start, then we'll problem solve from there. I got the whole air box on and tight. Just got to put this on, put fuel in it, and I think that's it, assuming the battery has somewhat of a charge. This is the moment of truth. It's got gas. Anytime you're starting a project, I used to keep a fire extinguisher in the Prelude, but let's go ahead. Let's film it with the phone too, so I can get my disappointment on camera. It's in neutral, got the green light on. Yeah, so we have a fuel leak down there, as you guys can see.
Oh, yeah.
But she runs. She starts up. That was after sitting since March. I had the whole front end of the bike off. Both wheels. Everything. New spark plugs, wheel bearings. And it took 20 seconds to start. Fresh oil change, new exhaust. Damn. Just want some choke. I don't know if she wants to choke or not. Alright, so right now, disassembling the carbs, we got them off. Just gonna take the bowls off for now, and we're hoping to find a stuck float or something of the sort, because that'll tell us if a float's stuck that it was over fueling, and just that's why it wouldn't idle. So we got these 4 bowls off, and one thing you'll notice, so it looks clean. Oh, that one doesn't, because it's already, well, there we go. It looks clean, that gasket looks good, but then once it starts to dry, this white oxidation reveals itself. This is one of the carbs that was leaking pretty bad, and you can see all the gas that's right around the rim where that gasket sits. So my theory is that the gaskets aren't necessarily bad, but they just need some moisture. Might throw some WD-40 on them, or oil, or some sort of lubricant, let it sit, clean it, throw it all back together, because all these floats work perfect. So we're going to work on those gaskets, cleaning them up, lubing them, put it back together, and go another round with the bike. So, the bike technically starts. It sounds incredible. That exhaust, I would really hope it sounds incredible. It was not cheap. I paid about the same for the exhaust as I did for the whole bike. Whether it was a cheap bike or an expensive exhaust, we'll leave that up for you guys to find out. Got the gauge cluster in. Technically it'll start, which is awesome. That's a lot further than I thought we would get today. I was kind of just expecting to maybe get a few things bolted up, but it's awesome to have it running. It does still leak fuel. I took all 4 carbs off. They come out as one big unit, and it wasn't really able to solve it. I was able to slow down the leak by taking the bowl gaskets out, letting them sit in some WD-40, letting them swell up a little bit because they were kind of dry, putting them back in, and it did slow down the leak a little bit. It didn't leak before, so my guess is it just sat for a while under my ownership, and I neglected it, and that's what happens when you don't maintain your vehicle. So I have a new carb rebuild kit already on the way. I'm going to do every gasket in the carb, because obviously if one's bad, they're probably all on their way out. So we're going to rebuild all the carbs, and then hopefully, if it doesn't leak fuel, bolt down the seat, bolt down the tank, and take it for a ride. Obviously I have to do a bolt check, got to check over the chain, make sure nothing's floppy or, any wires. But I'm not going to put the lights or fairings on yet. I'm going to rock it like this for a few days, just make sure it's reliable, make sure it's going to start, and I don't need to take the fairings back off. But that's going to wrap up this video, guys. If you liked it, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're notified on every upload I make. Comment down below if you have any questions, or if you have some witty remarks, or you want to make fun of me for buying this bike. If you liked it, hit that like button, and I'll see you guys in the next one.